Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today, because honestly, we are going to unpack something truly fascinating. We're looking at a force so powerful, so deeply ingrained in our society, that it literally dictates reality as we know it. I mean it. It acts like an invisible armor. It shapes the opportunities you get, the respect you command, and the way the world responds to you before you even say a single word. Okay, let's dive right into this.
So, what invisible force actually controls your life? Now, you might be thinking, well, it's my hard work, or maybe your secret intentions, your good heart, or your raw talent. But the source material we're exploring today argues that humanity just doesn't operate that way. The world honestly doesn't care about your private intentions. There is another, deeply potent force at play here.
And there it is, reputation. Our source defines this brilliantly as power stored in human memory. I mean, think about that. Once people believe a specific story about you, that belief immediately goes to work. It works for you, or it works against you, literally before you even step foot into a room. People decide whether to trust you, fear you, or hire you based almost entirely on the story attached to your name.
Section 1. The invisible power, the armor that dictates reality. You know, modern civilization loves to pretend it values deep truth, but the reality? We judge incredibly quickly. All it takes is one little rumor on social media, one tiny whisper, and entire careers can just evaporate before breakfast. That is the sheer invisible power of appearances.
Section 2. The Sleeping Dragon, Winning Without Fighting. To really understand this power, we need to travel way back to ancient China during the brutal War of the Three Kingdoms. We're going to meet the legendary strategist Zhuge Liang.
Just look at these numbers. They are absolutely terrifying. Liang was resting up in a small town with most of his army deployed somewhere else. Suddenly, an enemy army led by the highly experienced General Sima Yi approaches. The stakes are literally impossible. 150,000 hardened soldiers against Liang's mere 100 men. He has zero defense, no chance, and absolutely no way to escape. Any normal commander would barricade the gates and just prepare for a bloody end.
But Liang? He does something totally insane. He doesn't panic. Actually, scratch that. He leans into it. He orders the city gates opened completely wide. He hides his few soldiers, he takes down the flags, and then he climbs the city wall all by himself, dressed in peaceful Taoist robes, lights some incense, and just calmly plays music on a lute. Imagine being the invading general, rolling up with an army of 150,000, and the enemy leader is just casually performing a concert like he's at a meditation retreat. Sima Yi arrives, and his soldiers are basically begging to charge in. But Yi just freezes. You can practically hear his internal monologue racing. Okay, no way. This has to be a trap. Why? Well, because of the sleeping dragon's reputation. Liang was famously known for being brilliant, unpredictable, and always one step ahead. The scene was just too obvious. Liang was practically daring him to come inside, and that terrified the general way more than an actual opposing army ever could.
Sima Yi retreated? Think about the sheer weight of what just happened. A massive, heavily armed military force completely fled an undefended town, and not a single drop of blood was spilled. It was entirely because of psychological power. Reputation completely overrode logic. Liang had spent years building up this image of being dangerous and unpredictable, and that image became a much stronger defense than physical weapons.
Section 3. Weaponizing Doubt, the Anatomy of a Takedown.
Enter the famous showman, P.T. Barnum. He wanted to buy the famous Peale's Museum in New York, but he had almost no cash. The owners were getting ready to sell to a rival company instead, simply because that company had a better reputation. So Barnum realized a really cold, hard truth. If you can't raise your own reputation fast enough, you kind of have to damage your rivals. Notice the domino effect he created here. Barnum didn't just scream wild accusations. He was way smarter than that. He planted uncertainty by writing newspaper pieces casually suggesting Peale's Museum was financially weak and badly managed. Once people start doubting, investors panic. Then the stock collapses. As soon as the rival's reputation weakened, the museum owners completely stopped trusting them, and boom, Barnum swooped in and won the deal. A rumor alone weakened confidence, and the illusion controlled reality.
But Barnum wasn't done. Later on, when Peale's Museum tried to rebuild their reputation by offering these high-class scientific hypnotism shows, Barnum attacked again. But he didn't formally criticize them. He mocked them. He staged fake, absolutely hilarious hypnosis performances where everything just failed miserably. Audiences laughed, and Peale's super serious reputation suddenly became ridiculous. The lesson here?
Ridicule is often far stronger than a direct attack. Recovering from public humiliation is just so much harder than recovering from normal criticism.
Section 4. The perception lens. Illusion controls reality.
Because we can't ever truly know someone's soul. We rely on symbols. We simplify complex people into little labels, like she's classy or he's dangerous. Take the ancient story of Mizu Xia and the ruler of Wei. The exact same action, sharing a half-eaten peach, was interpreted in wildly different ways. When Mizu Xia had a stellar reputation, he once shared a half-eaten peach with the ruler. The ruler thought, "Oh, how loving, he gives me what he enjoys." But years later, jealous rivals completely destroyed Mizu's reputation. When looking back at the exact same event, the ruler's interpretation completely flipped. Suddenly, the peach sharing was seen as deeply insulting. Literally nothing changed but the lens of reputation.
But you must be incredibly careful when you're trying to alter someone else's reputation. Look at the famous, bitter rivalry between Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. Tesla was out there promoting alternating current, or AC, while Edison championed direct current, DC. Well, Edison was terrified of Tesla's growing reputation, so he launched this aggressive fear-mongering campaign. But Edison made some massive mistakes. To prove AC was dangerous, he publicly electrocuted animals and made these really wild claims. He went entirely too far. The public backlash was absolutely severe, and people actually started viewing Edison himself as cruel, unhinged, and desperate. This brilliantly illustrates that if you're going to attack someone else, it has to look clever, controlled, and justified. Unhinged attacks only destroy your own invisible armor. Section 5. The Playbook. Building your invisible armor.
So how do we actually apply all of this? How do we take control and build our own invisible armor today? Well, before you build, you must know how it falls apart. The source warns us that reputation rarely vanishes overnight. It dies slowly. It dies through tiny little cracks, unaddressed rumors, gentle mockery, slight doubt, quiet whispers. If you ignore these tiny cracks for too long, public perception totally shifts. You absolutely cannot afford to let these cracks expand.
So here is the core playbook to secure your asset. Step 1. Build one strong trait. Choose one quality, like reliability, intelligence, or charm, because human beings remember simple stories best. Step 2. Protect your name carefully. Avoid emotional public reactions or desperate self-defense. Panicking publicly just confirms the public's suspicions, right? Step 3. Watch for those small attacks we just talked about. And finally, Step 4. Use your reputation strategically so that doors open faster and people just naturally give you the benefit of the doubt.
Honestly, half of all power in society is simply psychological positioning. The world loves to pretend that pure merit decides everything, but the reality is that when two equally qualified candidates appear, human beings instantly default to the one with the better branding and the sharper shoes. We are basically operating on ancient tribal instincts that are just wearing neckties.
Which brings us to our final, deepest lesson. People rarely experience you directly. They experience the idea of you. That idea becomes your reputation, and once it's established, it controls outcomes before you even speak. So I want to leave you with this lingering question to reflect on. What is the idea of you? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this empowers you to start actively guarding and building your own invisible asset.